Hey guys, welcome back to another lunch break, and it is Fashion Week here at VBF. And I walked into this whole Fashion Week. So Tom, to my left,
Yeah.
and J2, I wasn't questioning your name. I just had, I was wondering for camera angles for them, are you to my left or to anyway?
Yeah.
I got Tom and J2, but it's Fashion Week at VBF. You guys made this up randomly.
I wish I could say it's you guys. This was all J2's idea.
Okay.
Yes.
With 2021, well, I don't even know how it even got started.
It got started. So there was a whole bunch of controversy over Tom's. If you watched our Christmas Eve service, Tom was looking amazing, and
He did look pretty good.
He got to do 3 wardrobe changes, and we all felt disrespected to our fashion game. We're like, hey, we can dress too, Tom. Let's just have a fashion week at VBF since we need some life anyway. And it went from one little fun joke thing to one of the funnest weeks we've had at the church.
So I showed up.
It's crazy.
I showed up yesterday to Wednesday night, and you guys were looking really. And if you guys know me or you see me, I'm a flannel, t-shirt, and pants guy.
Yeah.
Like I'm just, yeah. And I'm a dad too, so I feel like I've gone into full dad mode. I'm like, yeah, that'll work. You know, I don't need anything.
Yep.
And then I show up, and then one of our media guys, Cohen, walk over here for a second. Cohen's switching.
Are you
Cohen,
ready
you
for
got to
this?
see. So I walk in,
He wasn't
and you
prepared for
guys,
this.
you guys
He's
had
grabbing his
like
jacket.
you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
had the night at the Roxbury. You guys have the night at the Roxbury outfits on, and then Cohen also has like this thing going. All right, Cohen, come down.
He's from the
So
Men in
I had
Black.
to reach into my. All right, Cohen, you can go. Thank you.
Looking
I had to
good, man.
reach into. Seth looks more like a dad today, so we won't bring him on. But there you go. You had to make his appearance. See what happens, Josh, when you don't show up.
Hi, Josh.
But I had to reach into my wardrobe and pull out a sweater that I thought was kind of fancy. So
This
I didn't
is
wear.
nice, though.
I thought I was like I had to wear a cardigan, so I didn't and not wear my hat because I didn't want to look like you know.
Well, you look very
I hope-
nice.
okay, thank you. I
compete.
appreciate it.
You compete.
Yeah.
But what we ended up
I
finding out
compete.
through all this is that there really was no winner. J2 kind of being the steamroller of this whole thing was just like, everybody's been winning.
And that's what's cool because Tom knows I'm competing with him when we're not even. Well, I'll be like, my pencil's cooler than yours, Tom. Like I'm competing always. And this week I learned that just everyone's happier. Everyone's coming in excited to see each other and what we're wearing. It changed the vibe, and we do have to tap into that somehow
You gotta get.
for the everyday basis.
Yeah, you do.
Did
gotta
you guys
find a
know
creative
you
way.
guys had blue matching suits? Did you guys know this?
We
about
knew.
each other?
So Tom wore this.
This is Christmas Eve. This was the first
Okay.
outfit.
And I had a plan. I knew Tom was gonna wear the blue jacket for one of his days. So the first day of official Fashion Week, I came wearing the blue one to try to eliminate his chance to wear the blue one.
Gotcha.
And ends up happening. We're wearing it on the same day, just killing it. But we all
Listen,
win.
I'd
So-
buy a vacuum from both you guys, so that's perfect. I would do it. All right, so today I have these guys. You guys do youth at the church. You're in high school, involved in high school,
Yep.
and then you're involved in junior high ministry. Is it junior high, middle school ministry?
Middle school, yes.
And
Sixth grade.
and then you guys both work with young adults. So today I want to get a chance and talk about just kind of the state of what it is to be a student in this digital environment with COVID.
Yeah.
And just kind of where young adults and students are at, just all of a sudden going from being able to meet in person to everything pretty much being a digital transaction in some way, right? Where we're just meeting each other online. We're having, and when we do meet in person, we're like really far away from each other. So it's really hard to have these deep relationships, right?
Yeah.
With people. And so I just wanted to kind of just briefly, and we'll go into some things, just kind of get a synopsis of like where we're at right now. How are students adapting to this really fast change in this environment?
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna say real quickly that it kind of just depends. So what I've seen with high school kids is just over the last 9 months, 10 months, however long it's been, that there's a lot of rule followers and everybody kind of just, okay, here's what we're supposed to do. But then over time, just like adults, we have seen these kids go, well, now it's time to kind of like take matters in my own hands, and it's time to get serious. We've seen some kids grow amazingly during this time. Very, very few. I could probably count all of them like on both of my hands.
Yeah.
But then there have just been others who COVID has just been a really weird time because there are people who, through a difficult time in their life, have grown stronger and closer to God, closer to the church. They're involved. But there are also people who are living it up and staying home, and it really takes, if you don't have a parent that pushes you, then it takes it really takes that parent
Self-discipline, though. If you don't have self-discipline, you're saying,
Yeah.
and you don't,
Oh,
then
yeah.
then you kind of fall apart.
for sure,
Right.
100%. So it hasn't been a clear, everybody acts like this across the board. It is just it's come in all shapes and sizes. Is what I've seen.
Parenting is really shown up, and it has made me think about my parenting and what I'm going to do moving forward, because I think Tom will agree, the children with the strong parental influences, the parents that are engaged and involved in their kids' lives, those are the ones that are thriving through this period, and the ones that it's not their fault have more absent parents, only have one, divorce homes, like things
Right.
like that are showing up.
But
Like they are showing up.
Even parents that are trying a little bit, like I've seen, there's this one girl that goes to our high school who their parents aren't crazy involved, but they do come consistently, and therefore even when the parents don't come, the daughter still comes.
Yeah.
And so it's not that this, in order to be an involved parent, you're helping with events or
Yeah, not
you're
at
there
all.
serving. It's just coming and bringing your kid. Those are little things that
Or
I've seen.
there's one parent who's completely not cool with their kids coming to youth group, but they message me every week. They tell me to send them the sermons. They tell me to send them the notes, and their kids sit down and watch it. They participate through our text Bible studies, and it's just it's a matter for you parents listening. It's a matter of push your kids, because they are sitting in boredom, and they are trying to fill their time with stuff. And when they get done with homework, especially the middle schoolers, when they get done with their homework, they're stoked for all the free time that they have now. And it's a lot. It's multiplied. And they don't have enough people pouring into them right now who are able to contact them and meet with them. And it's the parents in the household that can influence them and say, hey, take some time to work on your spiritual health.
Yeah.
So you guys have seen a bigger presence in like parental, like with parents involved in kids' lives versus like friends at this point. Like you're seeing a lot more parents involved because they're not going to school and they're not seeing their friends, even though they're online, which we're going to talk about in a second. You're seeing a lot more parent involvement, basically, or interaction with the students.
If the parents are there,
It's
for sure.
it's magnified. If you're involved in your kid's life, it's magnified right now. And I don't know. I'm sorry it's so somber, but it's a true fact right now. We gotta show our kids that we care about them spiritually, and they're not just, I'm not just talking about spiritually in their relationship with God, their well-being, period, their depression, what they're going through, their lack of friendships, that community that they're missing, it's affecting them. It is affecting them. So like, let's just be there for our kids.
Yeah.
So when I was doing youth way back in the day, back in the day,
You played electric guitar.
I
for the
used to,
worship band.
yeah, way back in the day. Just go with that.
Way
There was a statistic out. I've just butchered that word, but there was a statistic out that basically said that the overall arcing influence of a student wasn't from the parents, wasn't from the grandparents, but it actually was from relationships from other students in their personal lives. So, friendships were the most, affluential thing in their life. It was the thing that they relied on for decisions. All things. Parents were a big factor, grandparents, especially if they were involved in the equation. But at the end of the day, what their friends did kind of trickled down to what they believed and what they also did. Are you guys seeing that change, like, at this point? Like, are you seeing, like, basically friendships at school kind of take a backseat to, like, parental relationships and grandparents or whoever's involved in the scene?
I would say that we see it. I don't think that will ever change, regardless of how people communicate, because we have kids that are on video games because that's where the other kids are, not because their parents told them to get on there and play their video games. So I would say that, and then even along the lines of when we have people, so we have like a creative team in the high school ministry. We have a group of creative kids that come up with different ideas for what we're going to do in the future and how we can be personal and all this stuff. And you'll notice when 2 or 3 respond, then the 4th one will, and the 5th one, and the 6th, and the 7th, and 8th. And if nobody responds, then nobody responds.
Yep.
And so it still happens through
Gotcha.
the technological, I guess, avenues that we're able to communicate. But that's what I see with high school, at least.
What would you say? Because it's funny because you mentioned video games. You're like, well, kids are still online, and like to a lot of parents out there, to like a lot of people that are a little bit older, they'd say, well, how's that a relationship, right? Like, so my kid will go online and he'll say, dad, he'll beg me. And you've probably heard this one in youth. He goes, I have a 13-year-old, dad, so-and-so's going to be online today. And I really want to play with them because I get to go and game with them today.
Yeah.
Talk about that for a second. Because I think, can you have a real relationship with somebody over a video game? Like, can you have an authentic, and we're going to talk about relationships, but can you have an authentic relationship with, this digital communication, basically?
I have this is JT's field.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm a gamer at heart, so I game with the kids. It's been used as an avenue for me multiple times.
Okay.
And, it's cool because for one, they get excited when you get on and they get to talk to you. And I can just say there's multiple kids that my personal relationship with them now in the ministry has been amplified, and it's there because the only time the kid will open his mouth is via the PlayStation 4 or 5 app. And when they're talking on there like crazy, and then you finally get to know this kid a little bit and go, oh, he gets excited about this and this and that. This is his mom. This is that. Like, you get to find out these things. And then when they show up the next Sunday, they're like, hey, that was cool how we played last night. And it's literally an icebreaker for you. So it does work. I did learn that you have to limit their time, because some parents aren't even limiting their time online. So I have times where certain junior hires, when they're online with us, it'll reach that time period. I'm like, hey, we're done, cut off. Whether your parent allows you to play till 2 a.m. or not, you're done playing with us and your leaders right now, because we want to teach you some boundaries within your gaming. But yeah, and we've hosted Bible studies through PlayStation and tons of things. And I just saw on a youth pastor page that we follow, he did a Bible study in a Fortnite lobby, which I haven't dabbled in yet. And I'm like, whoa, that's something I might need to try, because it shows all these fake characters showing up. And those are all kids doing a Bible study. Like, those
That's so
fake
insane.
That's crazy. And I haven't pulled that one off, but pastor showed me it. And I'm like, I might need to jump in that one next.
I used to really be against kind of like the movement of going technology.
Right.
But it's where people are, and it's really like anything else. Whatever you want to say is going on in society, culture, wherever, this is where people are at. And instead of trying to tear that establishment down, embracing it and working with it, kind of like that, what was it, like the verbal jujitsu? That's a fun word. But like using that. Okay, so if kids are going to be on there anyways, and if they create a social platform on these whatever video games, why don't you just infiltrate that and use it? And I think that's a lot of ways, like even with parents. Okay, so you don't like your kids playing video games, well, why don't you get on there with them? Or why don't you ask them how the Bible study went? Or after watching this, like with J2, like why not use that? Like, you can still do ministry through a Fortnite lobby.
Well, I think the difference too before was like when we talked about digital communication and being on these platforms and online gaming isn't new, but when I would play with students, people would be like, oh, you're just wasting your time, versus now it's something that's more accepted. But even now, more so with COVID and distant learning, all these different things, we've been kind of forced into it, right?
Yeah.
Like we've been forced into this digital space. So being forced into it versus choosing to do it, like, I remember some of my times with students going to lunch with them one-on-one was some of like one of my best memories, like being able to sit down with a kid face-to-face and be able to talk life. Those were huge moments. But that's not to take away from, what can happen in a video game space or through Facebook chat or Instagram or all these different things.
Now, I will say it has to be even the Facebook, the Instagram conversations, the text. We do a text thread now with the junior hires, which just open them up to sharing so many feelings within themselves and what they're dealing with. They feel safe texting it, and it's fine. It opens doors, but it's completed with the personal relationship, the in person, being able to really see a human's emotions and like feel like, I don't know, there's something to the in person. I think it should be used as a tool to build on our in-person relationship. Like, it can't be solely online. I firmly believe that. I think it's a tool that we have to embrace, especially as youth ministers. We have to embrace the tool, but it's always to get that personal relationship with them so they can get a personal relationship with Christ.
Right.
So let's keep going into relationships. So I want to talk about, because of the digital space, transactional relationships versus real relationships. And what I mean by that is a transactional relationship would be, if we're friends, Tom, And
Which we are.
Sometimes. Today we are, because I like you too. No, we're friends. But in a as we're friends, a transaction would be like, hey, I do for you, and so you do for me. Like, hey, I buy you coffee, and you like to buy me Red Bull, and we live on this transaction base. Versus like a personal relationship, it's not based upon any kind of what I'm getting from you, right? Like you have a lot of people, if you have a business or you're doing life, that always want something from you. It's transactional. So they'll call you and say, hey, and your friendship's based on that transaction, whether it's for prayer, and that sounds weird. We'll talk more about it in a second, or whether it's for they need you to do a favor or whatever, versus it being like a personal relationship. And with online, I feel like a lot of relationships, because there's the need for community online, because there's a need to get something right from somebody. Do you feel like a lot of relationships online are starting to be more transactional? Like, hey, I need to hang out with somebody, so I'm going to hang out with you. And it's like you're getting something, not that you don't get things from relationships, or are we able to build authentic relationships through online communication? So, and I want to talk about the authenticity of a relationship too online, but just kind of like what you guys see with like transactional relationships versus personal relationships and what that looks like right now. And in general, I guess I know that's a lot to swallow, but what that looks like in general, like having a relationship that's real surface level, it's based upon like I get and you get kind of thing, versus there being a deep, authentic relationship there.
Yeah, there's especially social media and in group settings, as you said, there's value in the one-on-one. In social media, we kind of talked about this as we prepped, is you don't totally open up, especially when there's too many people around, there's too many voices. It's hard to be yourself and be vulnerable. It's something actually with the Fashion Week, I learned it from the Fashion Week, is that we can, in preparing a outfit for the day, like the thought will come into your mind, well, so-and-so like this, or this, will they think this is cool? And you're like, what kind of thought is that? Like, it's not a positive thought, but it should be for yourself. Like, how do I feel about this? And then being comfortable with yourself and being able to walk into the world with, hey, this outfit I like, I'm wearing. I say that because in relationships, you need to be able to say, hey, Vince, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I'm going through. And whether you like it or not, this is who I am. And I need you to still accept me and love me for this and help me walk through this. And a lot of people can't they can't just be comfortable in their skin online because there's too many eyes. There's too many eyes surrounding.
So hold that thought, because I do want to keep going on that. But I want to add another layer to this transactional. I felt like I didn't give you the full spill. Transactional versus personal. If you put something online that you think is good, Tom, you put a worship song online. You're really good at playing and doing worship. I would say playing and singing, but playing guitar and singing. But you're really good at worship. You're good at both.
Thank you.
If you put a song up and one of your friends that you know is one of your friends doesn't like it, or you don't get the like from it, does it bug you? Now, I know for Tom it might not as much, but again, the transactional thing, like, hey, I put this video online and so-and-so, I know young people think more like this, didn't like it or didn't share it. Does that have an effect?
Well, 100%. And it was one of the biggest things that bugged me about youth, because I'll see kids. I've been in a lot of who are now adults. I've been in their lives since they were just sixth graders, like Savannah or, people like that.
Oh, yeah.
And then you just see, and seeing how their character hasn't necessarily changed, but it's been like fine tuned. When you remember how chaotic and weird and, quirky and all the normal things, what's normal for a teenager to go through and experience, what they do now online is they'll post it, and if it doesn't reach, their friends the way they thought or get the likes or whatever, they'll then remove it.
But do you think that also ruins friendships? Like where you have somebody say, like I post, me being a younger person, if I post something and you two didn't like it, could I have a disdain or like a distaste for you guys because I expected you guys to go and like my post?
Right.
Right. So the relationship becomes transactional. Like, hey, I'm going to put something online. I expect
your support.
I expect your support versus I put something online and I know you guys support me. We're always going to be friends. Do you see what I'm saying?
And there's always those people that this so-and-so person, they always like my post. So then they post something, I'm going to give them a like because they always like my stuff.
It's
Did I even like that picture of your breakfast this morning? No. But I'm supporting you as a friend.
I've done that. I'll be scrolling past and I go, oh, actually, that's a family member. Gotta
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
You keep scrolling.
And it does hold way too much weight in our lives, and
So much, right?
it is too much because it doesn't matter if someone likes a photo. It doesn't matter. It matters of you sharing who you are, and I think that's what social media was intended for, is for us to be ourselves. And
Now
it's-
I'm gonna
judgment has changed that.
But
It
it's
has.
become transactional, though. I think being online, that's where I wanted to go with this. Being in an online presence, it's become like, hey, I'm going to put myself out there, but I'll support you if you support me, versus I support you just because I support you. Like, we don't always support people online. We don't have a tendency to go out and like people, especially if they went out and disliked something or said something that they didn't agree with us online. Now, that takes it to a whole nother level, right? Like, hey, I didn't really like what you were wearing today. If you put on Fashion Week, you guys would be like, wait, what?
Yeah, right.
Unfriend, dislike, it'd be
Right.
the whole gamut.
And it's interesting just to see how people use this as a way to either promote who they truly are or who they are not. And because I kind of feel like I was talking to one of the leaders in the high school ministry, and he was showing me about this kid who has like thousands of subscribers on TikTok and like thousands of views on TikTok. And he's like, this kid dresses a way that he didn't used to dress, but he dressed this way one time on TikTok, got a lot of likes on it, and then he just started feeding it more. And now he's in every post, he dresses this particular way. And it was just really interesting how that is really what happens. You kind of become a character of yourself whenever it is that, because like, you're kind of like with the photography that you'll post or whatever it is that you'll post. Well, then everyone's like, oh, I like that more. I like that more.
It becomes part of your identity.
Right. Like my Instagram now is I'm a dad. That's my character now. I can't just post anything that I want. Oh, here's the beach. Here's an omelet. And here's a guitar. You can't do these things. Like you can't, because people, that's why there's bloggers, and they don't want you doing political views. They want you just showing what your house looks like, and you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
So the dangers of a transactional relationship, like feeling like you have to get something or a response, you have to revoke response or get some kind of emotional, right? Because we put those things out there because we get a high from it, right? From the response. We get stoked when we have more likes. There's a transaction that happens. So just shifting gears, and I do want to go back to a little bit of relationship, but how does a transactional relationship affect our walk with Christ? Like being like in our relationship with Christ, are we more transactional than personal? Meaning like we show up to church because it's a check mark, and we think that, and not that God isn't saying like, good job, I'm glad you're here, but does that become our motive, especially if we're being trained online to get a transaction or a response from a digital space? How does that coincide with our spiritual response to who Christ is in our lives?
It's a very thin line, because you can set yourself up to only feel loved by Christ when you are just performing at your best as a Christian, and you feel like because you're performing your best as a Christian, I am so much closer to God now, when in actuality God loves so purely. When we're at our weakest, when we're at our lowest points, is when you feel him most, because he still shows you this love. He still shows you this love despite what you have done for him. And that's what makes us all turn to Christ too. We turn to Christ because what does it say? It says, while we were still sinners, he died for us. While we were still filthy and undeserving, he was still there for us and showed us that love. And that's a love, as we just talked about social media for a while. People can't show it like that. We can't do it. We're trying now as Christians, of course, through the Holy Spirit. We're trying to love people like that. But Jesus Christ, he's not transactional like that. He's unconditional is the best way to put it. And
so good.
That should be our motives to love people. Is be unconditional. Like whether this person has ever lent me $20 or not. If I have $20 and I can lend it to them, let's do it. Whether this person, this is one I held accountable. One of my friends has had me help him move, like every time he has moved houses. And the one time I called him to help me move, he didn't come help me move.
And you were like,
so mad.
Yeah.
I was like, I have been there for you forever.
Yeah.
And I had to get checked on that. He was busy.
I had a friend one time, I was moving and wanted to chart. He's like, I'll come help you move for $50 or $100 or something. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Aren't we friends? But it also, but in your mind, like you do things for people and you expect some, right? We have this expectancy versus, and online, especially moving into online, we put something out, we want people to like it back. So we expect, versus if we treat our relationship, our spiritual relationship with Christ, where we do something and there's an expectancy, not that we don't get, or there's not, if we, obviously God is good. It's just the expectancy, it starts to overcome what a relationship actually is, or what is meant to, what it's, the meaning of it, basically.
I've never really had to think about what the point of posting online is, but it's to get likes. You really don't post anything just to share necessarily. You want people to appreciate it, right?
Well, I do think you also
break
feel
it
like you
down.
have value to give to other people, which we can talk about in a second. But I think when you talk about, I think a lot of people post because it isn't just about likes. They feel like they're giving out value to people, and they feel like the value that they can bring to the table will help people's lives. So and I'm not saying
see
that
both.
people, I'm not saying that people, when they put their value out, like you said, it can go, I'll tell you the thing that.
And I'm going to give you an example of real life social media.
Okay, so I'll tell you what impresses me. Somebody that is willing to post something every day that they believe that, whether it's from God or from whatever, they think it's a value, but they don't grow in likes. They don't grow in, they're not killing it online, as you would say, right? Versus somebody that all they care about when they put a video out is the numbers, how many likes, how many shares, how many things. And I'm not saying that I don't want to reach people, and we don't, like, obviously we put something out. We're doing this podcast because we want this to be shared and liked, right? If you're watching right now, go share it, like it, please. But
Or don't.
or don't, right? But I'm just saying, and it isn't transactional. I'm not like, well, who didn't today? I don't have a list. It isn't a naughty and nice list, right? It isn't going on. But I do want people to take some value from this. Like today, if you're listening and you're like, wow, I had to think about my relationship because I am more of a transaction. I expect people, or if I tithe, not that you shouldn't. Biblically, you should. But I'm just saying, like, that isn't the whole principle. That isn't the whole point, right? Like,
Right. It's not the whole point.
It's not the
for
whole
sure.
point. I'm not saying that there isn't a return. Like having a friendship with you, Tom, it's been amazing. J2, we've been able to golf. I told my wife, like, we didn't get to hang out, and golfing's kind of been our thing lately. And so I've got to know you. So but it's great. And I don't expect anything in return from that. But when you start expecting, then expectations, what you thought, like I have a lot of people that come, I've seen a lot of people that come to church and they've been broken, right? They come through the doors and they've been beat up. And their expectancy was if they give their life to Christ, that their whole life is going to change in some physical way, meaning that they were going to get the house they wanted and the car, and God is going to bless them. And I'm not saying that he won't or that he can't, and all those things are possible. I'm just saying their expectancy is what killed the relationship versus it just being the relationship. And I think expectations can kill relationships if your expectations aren't tempered with the fact that the relationship is based on love and it being actual meaningful versus it being like, what do I get from this?
Which is why I think when you brought up the question of being transactional from social media, I think 100% when that kind of bleeds in, you do come in expecting, all right, I'm here now. I'm going to get my life together, and then everything, I'm going to have money in the bank. My car is going to work now. My relationships are going to be great. And what I see with students, though, I think this is like one of the benefits with these students being so young, and so maybe for the most part, most of them are untouched by the world, and so they come in and they're asking questions and they're trying to learn and they're trying to whatever. But the longer that they do, the longer that they're online, I was talking to somebody the other day that without giving too much information, they're just like, I know God's done with me. I'm doing this thing now, and I know God's done with me. And so it was transactional. I'm doing this thing, therefore God's done with me.
It's both ways. It's positive and negative.
Right. And so, I do think that social media does kind of weirdly play a role. The example I was going to give is like whenever you do have like a pastor that's on stage and they go, whether it's at the middle, the end of their sermon, they go, did you get anything out of this?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. No, that makes
because
sense.
They do kind of, when we say something, whether we know it's right or wrong, we are looking for like, does that resonate with you?
Validation. Too.
Yeah. Did it make an impact in your life in some way? And so I think once again those lines kind of like you said, J2, are very thin.
Well, and I think too you have to go back, and the Bible says that you shouldn't be that you should go in and knowing that God is who He is. But I'm saying like sometimes we have human expectations and then spiritual and sometimes those don't line up.
Yeah.
Because God is going to come through. He's always going to be there. I'm not saying that you're not going to get, but if you go into it with that mindset, it doesn't always play out the way you think it's going to play out. Is
Yeah.
that fair to say?
Yeah,
For sure.
100%.
So let's go into this. Let's end with this one because I think it's huge.
Okay.
Let's talk about accountability and what that looks like online. Like the idea of having accountability, and are we able to have that sense of accountability that we didn't post COVID or even post being all digital, in the sense of like, hey, I seen you every day, I can talk to you every day, versus online I can hide a little bit. I can I can escape looking you face to face and be like, no, that's not how it is, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, there's
Or
a,
in accountability in general.
yeah, there's a verse Jesus says that the eyes are the windows to the soul,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that that just goes
I'm
far.
looking you right in the eyes right now.
Right.
I had to look in your eyes.
But it's like it's something that's it's unmatched. Like you do a FaceTime with somebody, it isn't the same. You Zoom with them, it's just not the same.
Interesting.
And you're getting the basics of it. You're seeing their face, the physical response when you say something, and the interaction and stuff. But I just what we've seen, or at least what I've seen with the students, and even like leadership, you've got people that are just on fire, but there's a level that I can't really explain that is not there when you're screen to screen.
Mm-hmm.
And so accountability has been going back to what you were saying about lunch with kids. I got In-N-Out for a kid one time. He's social distancing still, no like going to the barber or nothing like that. And so I got In-N-Out, placed his order on his doorstep, got my lawn chair, was like 20 feet away, sat on the
That's so cool.
sidewalk, and we just had lunch together. And so because people still I FaceTimed him, we text and stuff, but there's still something there. So I think accountability, you're gonna have to find creative ways to do it, but it's so important to still have that face to face, because you can so easily respond with "I'm good" when somebody asks you how you're doing. Oh, I'm good. Like it's fine. And so that's what I've seen with
It's
at least
crazy
high school
how
kids.
big those moments seem so small for like us as adult, like going to lunch with the student. But I remember, like, I don't remember a lot of messages, the pastors gave me when I was younger, the youth pastors. But I remember my youth pastor had a little Carmen Gia, and he would take me to lunch in that thing, like, a couple times a month. And I remember the conversations in the car. I remember it breaking down. It's so weird to like have these remembrance of that and these personal times, but not really of like the message was received, like when he spoke it, and it helped develop me as a person, but it wasn't ever like, oh, that was the most meaningful thing you did on a Sunday morning. It was
Right.
those personal touches.
That's interesting.
Accountability, just going to this. So I want to read a verse and we can keep talking.
Yeah.
In James 5:6 says, therefore confess your sins to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The prayer for a righteous person has a great power as it is working. Do you think that it is harder online to be able, like you just said, to confess and be able to be truthful with people? One of the things we talked about, we pre-gamed a little bit. I talked about how hard is it to be authentic with people if we're not willing to be or how much authenticity can we expect from somebody if we're not willing to be authentic ourselves?
Yeah, and it's hard when it's one of those things where on social media, you guys are seeing it right now. There's people there's far right people, far left people just on social media letting their thoughts be known, and then they're getting into arguments on social media saying you're this and you're that and you're this, and it's things that wouldn't be said face to face. Like people get you get that courage behind the computer.
That keyboard
screen.
courage?
Yeah, that keyboard courage behind
Yeah.
the screen. And it's the same way, but it's like opposite with our feelings. Like you will not open up in certain avenues online, but when a person's face to face with you, looking into your soul, as Tom was saying in that verse, you for one, you can see peace in someone's eyes. You can see that this person is not going to judge me right now. I can be safe with this person, and it's just hard. Like it's hard to lie to someone just staring directly in their face. So it's real hard looking face to face and going, yeah, I'm completely okay. When we're in a tight, close setting like this, and I go, yeah, I'm okay, but my whole face is drooping. I literally have a tear coming out my eye.
Right.
Tom's gonna go, J2, you're not good, bro. Like what's
Right.
going
Yeah.
on? And that's why I think in person, finding out how to do it in person somehow is very important. How to meet up, how to have some face to face, how to get into a real deep conversation. Because the only time you open up is when someone makes you feel safe. And from a whole nother part of the city on a computer screen, you don't feel safe.
And we're being taught now not to trust, like with identity theft and like our cameras are recording everything, and just the lying to, we're just being taught not to trust a digital space a little bit, right?
The government is listening.
Yeah.
Well, we're being taught. So I think that does play into it too. But I agree with what you said. It's really hard to look at somebody over the screen and say like, "Hey, tell me what you're really struggling with." You know, you need that. You need that community and that connection. That's why church in general. I know there's obviously COVID. We're being safe, but you need that physical space where you can come to church and let go a little bit and see people and have that interaction. Because there's been times where I think people have been at church and they weren't expecting me to tell me something that they actually told me.
Mm-hmm.
Like God said something to them in the message, whether Pastor Ron said something, and then they just thought, I need to go and talk to somebody after this. Versus if you're at home, you watch it online, let's just be honest, you're a little bit, you're watching online, but you're also, your kids are running around the house and you're not as connected as you can be. And I'm not saying that you can't learn. It's been interesting to see my kids connect in online school in a way that I never thought they could. So you still can connect online. But it definitely, I do think there has to be a blend, as we talked about in the beginning, where you still have this digital space and you can connect and you can learn and get into it, but where also you can be there where people care and you have to look at somebody and literally hold their hand, right, and say, like, we need to pray through this.
What's
we need to get through
the
this.
verse that says, be at peace? Because there's brothers and sisters all around the world going through the very struggles that we are going through.
Oh, man.
Right?
Yeah.
And coming in person, you get to see that. You get to see that other people are struggling with insecurities. You get to, as a kid, you get to see another kid. Oh, that kid who I think is real cool. He walked up and asked for prayer. He needs prayer too. And it makes you feel comfortable. It makes you feel like you're not the only one that's broken. When your only feed of people's lives is online and watching their highlight reels, you go, so-and-so's in a perfect relationship. This kid's super rich. They have all good clothes. This person is always hanging out with their parents. Their life is all good, because you only see their highlight reel and you don't get to see them open up and break down and see that every human being on this earth is struggling with something and needs help and needs a savior. Yeah. And seeing that makes you feel comfortable and enough to get vulnerable and go, okay, this person is humble enough to say they need help in church. I can do the same thing.
Well, and I love what you said, to piggyback on that, J2. You said we're seeing the highlight reel, and I think as we went into this today, I started preparing on a youth side of things, like where we're seeing teen suicide up more than we have. We're seeing just suicide in general, and I feel like, and the response of the parents and the people around them is like, I never expected that. And it's because we are seeing the highlight reel, right? We're safeguarding ourselves behind the screen. Like, everything's good from this device, but when you get down to it, like, there's a lot of people that have personal issues that are broken, and they're not, and they can't let it go here because they'll be judged on this platform. Versus if I know you and I are talking in a room, or we're able to say things that we feel like is not getting to the whole world.
Yeah.
So there definitely is that play going to. Man, this is a good conversation. I'm so glad that Josh isn't here today. Just kidding. Well, guys, thank you for joining us for another lunch break. We're glad that you're here. Pastor Ron's going to be up this Sunday, and I'm excited for that. I don't know if you guys are excited. So hopefully we will, you guys, vbf.org.
VBF.org. It's student-led ministry on Instagram.
Yep, Connect VBF, Instagram, Facebook, and VBF Youth YouTube.
Yeah, all of our videos go on that YouTube channel. So, for those of you out there.
We love you guys. Have a good day.
Have a good one.